good morning. Welcome back to season one of Catapult Your Career, where we delve into the reality of various careers and explore practical advice for numerous professions. And today we've got another kind of profession and career, very much focused on the world of marketing agencies. And I have none other than a good friend in Kate to speak about all things marketing. How are you, Kate?
Good morning. I'm good, thank you, Michael.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And of course, we're going to go into a wealth of topics for the benefits of our listeners in terms of what marketing agencies are and all the rest of it. But before we kind of get there, tell us a bit about yourself and your background.
Oh, how far back do you want to go?
Go on, tell us your road trip, your journey to perhaps where you almost started and where you kind of arrived today, and we're going from there.
Okay. So, I always knew that I wanted to write. So, although I ended up running a PR marketing agency, um, I can really remember vividly teaching myself to read and write before I went to school, because I was desperate to read newspapers. I was obsessed with them. So, my kind of hobby was creating newspapers. And I didn't really, this is a long time ago. And I didn't really, it was very different. The careers focus was very different. I didn't really know what it was I wanted to do. I just wanted to write in newspapers. I didn't have the word journalist or feature writer. Um, and then, so writing was always a passion and still is. I'll read the back of a cereal box. I love books. I kind of um, devour anything, and I'm really nosy as well, which helps in this job. So, kind of fast forward to by the time I was 14, and I went to my careers session, and um, the lady said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a journalist. And she looked at me and said, have you thought about being a hairdresser?
Okay.
So yeah. So I kind of, as teenagers do, I mean that for me, university wasn't a path. It just wasn't, this is the early 80s. It wasn't something that was ever on my radar. So I think I kind of played around a bit, just wanted money, and actually did a course at college in hotel management because I really wanted to leave home. So that seemed like a good way to just go and travel. And then about a year into that, an opening came up at a local newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
So as a trainee, and I went for the interview and got it, and that kind of started me on my path. So because I can talk about this without drawing breath, Michael, but I think because I still smile when I think about it, because suddenly there I was in this environment and it was just where I wanted to be. And turns out that I'm really rubbish news writer, because I've got the nosiness, but I kind of had this real creative side where when you're covering a village hall meeting,
Hmm.
I think I was embellishing it a bit too much, so it kind of didn't go down very well. So I went into features. So I got a place in the features department. And funny enough, going back to when I was at studying for this hotel management course, I remember we had a marketing was part of that, and having my first marketing session, a lesson, and just thinking, this is amazing. I love it. I can remember it really vividly now. They were talking about a campaign that British Airways had done. So I think you have to remember, this is pre-internet, pre any real guidance. All I knew was the things that really excited me,
Hmm.
um, and that I felt passionate about without even really recognizing that as a thing, because back then you just earn money, and that was, most of it. So,
Yeah, yeah, and and
so
and that passion bit you said just coming in there, I think is incredibly important because like there's various narratives, aren't there, in terms of like, find your passion, you'll never work another day, and I think there's a balance between the two. I don't think it's quite as extreme as that, but people say, "Oh, how do I find what I like? How do I find my interests?" And I think it's as simple as doing things and looking at who the people are that inspire you, and then just doing a little bit more down that direction and down that path. And it's just
Yeah,
interesting what you said. You had that little marketing, and it was the same for me for coaching. Like I had an internal coaching course that around health coaching. And I did it, and I was like, "Crikey, this is a bit of me." This, so it's interesting. You had
yeah,
the same yourself.
yeah. It's like finding your favourite food. You don't
Yeah,
know you
yeah,
love it that much until you try it. And I
hmm
think probably I would say to anybody that's starting out on their career or changing career, look inside of you because you know what you love to do, and it could be that that doesn't seem like work. You might like helping people. You might be the person that people always go to for advice. You might write stories and poems that you never show anybody,
mm.
like I did. Well, I probably bored my family with them. So, for me, that was a real springboard, and the features department was very aligned to advertising, which I found really interesting as well, and absolutely loved it. Um, so I think for me, what I actually really wanted to be was somebody that told stories, which
Mm.
is exactly what marketing is getting somebody's story and telling it. And you say about never working a day in your life. I mean, I think I've been really lucky since since then not to feel that I've felt like that. But I don't want to say it's been. I think anybody's life is a there's bumps that come
Definitely,
along in the
yeah,
way. Things happen in your life, and I think there'll be people listening to this that are maybe in their 40s and thinking, yeah, that's great, but I've got this job that don't really like, but it pays the bills. And there's always a way to make a change.
definitely, definitely, yeah. I think there's there's various ways you could take this, but there's always things and challenges there, regardless of
Yeah,
your age, your background. You know, that being said, we have to take we're mindful of the privilege we have. We've both been well, especially for me. I've been born in the UK. I could have been born in Jamaica. I could have had a completely different set of circumstances. So that already has given me a massive privilege in terms of where I'm born. But I obviously there's various challenges being young, being mixed race, being older, having children. That whatever there is, you will have a challenge. So, it's important, like you said, it's not to say, "Oh, I'll wait till X and then I'll do it," because you'll never do it. There'll always be something, whether it's a golden handcuffs in terms of money, whether you've got to pay your mortgage, whether it's children. There always will be something preventing you or stopping you. And I think, like you said, I know what you're saying. You're mindful to say, it's been an absolute joy in your journey. But it's not to say there hasn't been bumps along the road and you've faced challenges to get to where you are now.
no. And it was really different times. So kind of the first bump came when I was 18 and I had a baby, which wasn't on the plan.
No,
And I can remember people at work, because I was doing so well, said, "You're Matt, what are you doing? This is it, your life's over, your career's over." And I think I didn't quite know how I was going to make it happen, but if you really want something badly enough, and I think also are willing to accept that it doesn't happen quickly,
yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't happen straight away, even if you work really hard and you're really good at your job, or have a baby or don't have a baby. And I went back to work, but it was different times and there was no allowances for having children.
yeah,
And you know working part-time meant I had to adjust my timeline a bit. But I think the key thing for me was doing something I loved then. I never thought further ahead than that. It was
yeah,
just, let's get the experience. And I think being willing to do anything. So to top my money up, I used to go and my friend had a cleaning company. I used to go and clean carpets in the evenings, and um, you just to kind of survive.
Yep.
really, and keep things happening. And I like to think I could still do that now.
Yeah.
So this, I think, if you're young and you're looking at a career, it doesn't matter if there's bumps on the way. It doesn't matter if you're um, not always doing what you think you're supposed to be doing. You do have time in your life to, and you'll meet the right people and you'll get the experience, and it does come together. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like that when you're young
Yes.
necessarily, but I think that probably for me with the business, that's always been my thing. I mean, I never on my roadmap was having my own business. If you showed me my 20-year-old self, my life now, wouldn't have believed it. But I think I just had this thing where I thought, the workplace could be quite a brutal place. And I got to a point where it was just really difficult to be a mum and to work. It was just very, very different times. But I also thought I want to create an environment where it's people can be happy and be their best selves. And that was really, it took me a while, but I left my job at the newspaper and went freelance, which was a really good first step, which meant I got to work for a lot of different publications and learned along the way working in a very different way. But I think that entrepreneurial spirit, I think you'll identify with this, is if you know something's not how you want it to be, it frustrates you because you want to change it, and
Yeah.
you have to be in an environment where you're allowed to change things, and it's not, look, this is just the way things are, this is how we've always done it.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true, and there's so much to unpack from what you just said there. I think just the first thing, going back a little bit, is around that journey you took yourself and how it takes time. I think it's quite interesting because it's not sexy, is it? It's not like get rich
No,
quick. You see all these
no.
various, whether it's cryptocurrency or various things, whatever realm it is, it's all about pace and getting it done like now and getting rich quick. And the career piece is exactly the same. I look back myself and the previous experience I've had, both positive and negative, and they've helped shape me to be where I am today. And even in terms of my kind of own transition, in terms of coaching and other
Yeah,
realms, it's taken a good, a year and a half really, in terms of um, kind of looking for formal education, expanding my network, looking at opportunities, whether it's volunteering or paid opportunities to build my skill set, to then have a shop floor, to then transition myself. And I think it's I think that's why, I suppose that from a bias point of view, I think coaching is quite important for people to help them on that journey, because it takes some time. You can soon lose the faith, can't you, if you haven't got someone in your corner saying, "No, keep going. That this is the quick wins you've had already. It's you keep going in the right direction."
yeah,
Because if it doesn't happen within a month or 3 months, it's easy to drop your head and think, "Oh, it's never going to happen for me. I'm never going to make this change."
yeah. And I think, I suppose fast forward a few years to when I kind of started the business in my 30s. For me, coaching was something that I didn't even know was a thing
Mm.
then.
Hmm.
I mean, I think I suppose I always gravitated towards people who would help me,
Yeah.
and who I respected and that I could learn from. But formal coaching was the absolute game changer for me, because it was it was somebody kind of facilitating my thoughts, taking that jumble and giving me that roadmap, or helping me, excuse me, on that roadmap of where I wanted to be. I didn't even know such a thing was possible. And then you
Mm.
have to remember, even then in my 30s, the internet was kind of just coming in. If you wanted a book, you bought it or went to the library if you wanted to access information, which seems crazy now. But I think and then coaching wasn't really, I didn't, you had trainers back then,
Hmm.
and I know there was coaches, but in my world there wasn't. There really wasn't. And starting work with a coach was just the thing that enabled me to be my best self and helped me to understand and formalize the things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do was do the job I loved, work with great people, help people, but more than anything, give people a working environment that would let them be the people they needed to be. So whether you're a mother or a carer or whatever you are, that sounds really altruistic. And I don't think it came from that place. I think it was just, I get to choose who I work with. I get to build a team of people who I will enjoy working with, and we can do great things together. But to do that, you have to nurture and invest in relationships the same way as you do with a child. It's the same with the business, but you do get to choose. But it's not an easy path to take,
No, no, for sure.
and what you need is the right people around you. So
Yeah.
I always say that coaching was by far and above the best investment of anything I did for myself and my business. And I think it's amazing now, all these years later, having a team of everybody's younger than me now, but a team of people who are younger than me, who I can give those opportunities to and give them the time to learn and develop,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is great. I've kind of gone a bit off piste, but
No, no, definitely, definitely not. I mean, you've covered, all these topics. The more and more you kind of talk about it, the more they're interlinked, really. And I think, I think I definitely share that sense of community almost that you've kind of articulated
yeah,
there. That the whole premise that there's obviously, for those who may have heard, in terms of Simon Sinek, he has a TED talk or a book around called Start with Why. And it's very much communicating why you do things, not how you do them, not what you do, but why you do things. And I suppose through reading that, I kind of found my own why to, inspire people to do what inspires them. Um, and it kind of it links to that sense of community, creating a community of like-minded individuals who are living their authentic selves, like living the lives they want to live, not the lives they think they have to live. And it's exactly
yeah,
like what you said. It's creating that community in, obviously it's more in a practical sense in terms of a business, but you're creating a community where you're giving people opportunities to flourish and be their best selves, which, the same premise is not too far from coaching, really. But kind of going from that journalist piece, I suppose, and going more into where you are now. Obviously, you said you were obviously more in terms of in a structured corporate environment. You then went to freelance. What was the transition from going to freelance to then kind of setting up where you are now, the kind of PR and marketing agency?
so I was at the time, journalism's a tough career. It's so tough now. Um, that it's really, I had it easy in lots of ways, but I was working for a few magazines and really enjoying the stuff I was doing. I was doing the celebrity interviews for Essex Life, which is celebrity in inverted commas, but got to meet some interesting people. But the money hadn't gone up, so the money I was earning as a freelancer hadn't gone up for like the 10 years that I'd been doing it. So I started to do commercial work, and realised that I really enjoyed it because I got to
Mm-hmm.
meet interesting people, and I think that this is the key. Everybody has a story, I think, and to be a good marketer or PR person or journalist, you need to be able to naturally kind of bring people's stories out. You can't just tell someone's story. Um, and I found out I was really good at that, at taking what could be a fairly boring business subject and finding that story and finding their why. So
Yeah,
this is before Simon Sinek. Why is my absolute go-to for everything, but this was pre that. And if you find the why, you find the passion,
yeah,
and then you have a story, then you have the excitement, and then you find the USP and all of those things. So I got to a point where I was really busy. I was working from home in my pajamas most days, so that was doing a job I loved, but I was honestly going a bit stir crazy. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start a business, and I'm just going to move into an office and kind of see how it goes. And there was never really any great plan. One of the first things I did was to go to, it was Business Link in those days, and had a couple of business advisors that came out. John Stenhouse, one of them, is at the University of Essex today, still a good friend. And they kind of, I was all, the flowery, and this is what I'm going to do. And they said, okay, how are you going to make money? And I was
Yeah.
like, sorry about that. And for me, I think that has been the the thing that I've had to work hardest at is being a business person. You have to pay the bills, you have to have governance, you have to be a good employer. And I was all about the culture. And
Mhm.
of course, you can't have a fun workplace, um, and do all the things that I still do with my team. To do that, you have to have a really good commercial model and make money.
Yeah.
And I hated talking about money, hated it. I'd be really passionate, I'd be pitching for some work, and as soon as they asked me how much it was going to cost, I just shriveled up into a pool of ash. So that took a long time. Quite honestly, it took me a long, long time to get that balance between culture and commercial viability. But it was just great in those early days. I was building my team. We were we were finding our way. And I don't know whether entrepreneurial is a thing, but I think I looked at the business about 8 months in and I thought we're being we're being sent in a certain direction by the people we're working with who want us to do a specific piece of work, but actually that's not where I want to be. So I think a massive thing for us was, excuse me, was I packaged our services up. So what we'd do is we'd go out and somebody would say, I need a press release. So you go and see them and do the press. So this might be in January. Then you go and see them again in March once they'd agreed it, and you do the interviews. By the time the work was complete, it might be May.
Hmm.
So for a couple of £100, you had like a 5 month lead in, and we
Yeah.
were always busy, but we never knew what was coming next. So social media was just coming in then, and that's kind of where the marketing piece came in. I sat down and I thought, well, I know that it's better for people to have ongoing communications and to have a plan. So I started packaging stuff up. So it meant that my average sales call, if you like, went from a couple of £100 to 5 to 6 thousand pounds.
Yeah.
And having that retained business, is what we call retainers in marketing, meant that we started to work with bigger companies. But more importantly, I could employ people and confidently know that we had this residual income. And that was an absolute game changer for the business. And this is where the running a business comes in. You might be you might be great with woodwork or gardening or whatever it is you want to do, but you have to learn those business skills. Get the
Definitely.
business advice from people who can push you in the right direction, and I mean really push you, because most people I meet and it's that are in business hate talking about money.
Yeah.
Not usually, it's not just about money that they go to, and that's why I work with the Business Enterprise Agency, because I think that really helped my transition as well, and I kind of like doing this stuff. And
Yeah.
one of the first things I will say to if I'm running a workshop for new businesses, I don't think it's right for me to stand up and say we're this and we're an award-winning business. I tell them about my first networking event where I shut myself in the toilet because I was so horrified at being around all these businesses saying, "What do you do? Hi, what do you do?" And I was like, "I don't know." And you learn those skills and that confidence, and you kind of learn your own narrative, I suppose,
Yeah.
as well, in terms of what's my story.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true, and I think that there's again, there's things again for kind of sharing your own insight and your own journey. And I think you're right, especially in terms of various careers. And obviously, this will be hopefully insightful for those who are wanting to both join or run their own marketing agency. That it there's obviously a passion element and wanting to enjoy the role and be good in terms of a skill set and competence of that role. Like I said, could be woodwork, could be plumbing, could be coaching, could be marketing, whatever that profession is, being very good and competent at that, because at the end of the day, you want to ultimately deliver value to people. But there's always two sides to a story. There's always the business side, and that's why you often hear with many organisations, whether it's Apple, Amazon, Tesla. Obviously, we have the big names that we recognise. So we recognise the Elon Musk, we recognise the Jeff Bezos, we recognise the Steve Jobs, who are like the head of said business, the creative thinkers. But every single one of those businesses had a second in command, and that second in
Yeah,
command was the ops person and making the thing tick. And they will see this in many books and many things that talk about running businesses, that they have two very different types of people. They have the creative thinker and the person who absolutely loves process and ops and make
yeah.
the clock keep turning. And I think it's really good insight for people who are, whether they're freelancers, whatever their profession is, and they're looking to move into a more of a business context, whether it's a lifestyle business, so kind of 3, 5 odd people, or kind of running something bigger. It's important to keep in mind both skill sets you need. Um, and with, I suppose, with that in mind, in terms of the skill sets and the requirements, obviously with yourself now, you've taken us through that journey you've gone on, and you're now at a place where you're kind of running your own kind of PR and marketing agency. This is always a tricky question for people, but I'm interested for those who are listening and wanting to enter a similar industry. What would like the average week look like for you? So like I'm sure there'll be a range of tasks and activities, and you know depending on the business, it might be certain times a year. It differs as well. But in terms of running a marketing agency, what would an average week look like for Kate?
Um, so we're in awards season at the moment, so that's kind of a tricky one. I think I can probably only answer this question by talking about my own business model, and I think word of caution for anybody looking to go into marketing, it can be quite a brutal business, and my belief is you can only be creative and do your best work if you're not overloaded with work. So
Mm.
our business model is to charge out about 50% of our time, which is pretty low for the agency model. So that kind of explains our average week. So we Mondays and Thursdays are the day everybody's in the office. So we work on those 2 days with the kind of creative process. So
Mm-hmm.
the one thing I will say is no day is the same.
No.
You're talking to a lot of people. You are we're writing press releases, award submissions, white papers, marketing strategies. And this can be all in one day, as it was last week, the week before. So it's quite good. The thing I like about it is you're jumping from one thing to another. So I
Yeah.
might be talking about a white paper for the oil and gas industry 1 minute, and then writing something about healthcare the next. And I think you need to be able to, I don't know whether it's a bit of ADHD, or I like to think of it as mental agility. But I think you need to be able to hold a lot of stuff in your head at once and kind of file things away with the ideas, and then be able to go and kind of hyper focus on something as well. So the big, I think the big part of it, it's not the doing, it's the ideas, it's the creating stories, creating opportunities. Again, in another week, we're usually on the phone pitching into media companies, planning advertising campaigns, driving my head of creative mad with my sketchy briefs. And um, I think for most agencies, that's usually par for the course. And then
Mm-hmm.
in between all that, somebody will suddenly phone up and say, I've got something awful's happened. I've got news crews outside my office. What do I do? And you have to drop everything and deal with crisis communication. So it's, I think it's fairly chaotic by nature on one hand, but really strategy driven on the other,
Yeah.
because you have to kind of move your client forward to deal with all of these moving parts, but have a strategic core.
Yeah.
So, so for us, from my team and myself, we spend a lot of time just talking through ideas. Um, we did when last week um, we did a stress and resilience workshop. We had a day at a beach hut, and I think a couple of my other team were on like well-being workshops as well. So the business structure is that everybody has 20% of their week for personal and professional development, to go off and just do that stuff, either facilitated by the business or on their own. And
Mm.
that I've just answered your question. I thought, oh my God, it's like an empty of my head, but of what's in there. But that's kind of what it looks like. And I think if you're looking to go into marketing, look for, you do get to choose where you work, look for that energy, you ask the questions, look at the company and see what do they do to help you be creative.
Yeah.
Because our kind of focus is be brilliant. It's the word I use. Is it brilliant? Are we brilliant? And if you want to be your best self, you can only do it in an organization that fits you culturally,
Mm.
and it's not for everybody. And going back to what you said about process, I need people around me who can get my brain dumps and you know make it happen, put the process in,
Yeah.
because otherwise it could all go very bad.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I suppose it's having the self awareness, isn't it? That you know that's the whole point of a business. That's the whole point of partnerships. I think I was saying this earlier this week to someone about partnerships, where someone was saying, they've been asked to arrange a task to do, and they said, but I'm really good at this one. I'm really like no one. I blow everyone out the water with this. And I'm saying that is the beauty of utilizing business and partnerships, because you have complementing skill sets. So you
Yeah,
can have someone who real out of the box thinking, I'm gonna pop you in that box. I'm gonna
yeah. Put
in
me in
terms
that
of
box.
creative ideas, and on the back of a napkin you can all of a sudden extrapolate to a whole new business almost. And there's other people who could have a step to step of a customer journey with 100 different steps of where they get from first sending an email to you to buying a product and finishing and leaving a
Yeah,
testimonial. And I think it's really important to utilize that in a business concept. But equally, when you've kind of spoke about some of the things that someone who wants to get into marketing, I think that's equally incredibly helpful, because, like me as well, I absolutely crave variety. So I like some sort of structure, so a semi structure, but within that structure, I like complete freedom to do, I could be
yeah,
coming in the morning and doing something completely different than what I did last week. And I think if someone wants that and craves that variety, then I'm sure they know. But this is obviously a prime industry and career in terms of marketing
yeah,
that they can kind of lean into. Whereas if they're, again, we're not, I don't want to be stereotypical, but if you're more, you say, software development and stuff like that, it's much more of a rigid and kind of structured and logical process
yeah.
to marketing.
And there's real, I mean, look, we're all different. We're all different people. And I think, again, that goes back to work for a company that celebrates the differences, that
Mm.
takes the time to understand all of these different cogs in the wheel, and how we work together. So I understand the people I need around me. I think back in the early days, I kind of thought I just need to clone myself. I need five more people like me, which I can't even imagine how bad that would have been. Um, and to create processes. So our processes are really good, but they're processes that are quite fluid as well.
Yeah.
So we all know what we need to do, but they're not Excel spreadsheets, for instance. So we create our processes. We use a Monday board, and we use processes in quite a different way. But it's it's just finding I think I didn't know what business culture was back in the day. I knew what I wanted to do, and it's something I'm absolutely passionate about. We're a values-based business now, which means we choose our customers based on values. Every decision we make, and the people we employ is around values. And that's so important. I think you will recognize that in yourself if it's important to you to be around good people and you're somebody that likes to contribute to the environment that you're in,
Yeah.
but expects a similar thing back. And I wish I'd known that when I was younger. Yeah, I don't know that it would have made any difference, to be honest. It was, it was different times, but I think, and it's so when for me, if I am looking at interviewing for the business, the first thing I do, I go back beyond GCSEs even, and I look for people that have worked in a shop on a Saturday and served chips and done a bit of volunteering, because that tells me more about them than their qualifications. For me, that's kind of secondary.
Hmm.
And if somebody is passionate about books and people, and um, that's we've kind of found this really good hiring spot now where you get those elements and everything else is trainable.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There's I mean, I completely agree with that philosophy, and in terms of you want someone with the right personality, because if someone, like you said, nosy, so if someone's curious, nosy, if someone's
Yeah,
hardworking, and if someone wants to basically leave the world in a better place than they can arrive, and want to, rather than taking away, add into a community, they're quite core foundational things inside of a person
yeah,
that you can train them, you can give them the competence and the skill set, but they're going to operate in the right way and ultimately going to build your culture. And I think the culture piece is quite interesting, especially when you're a small business. You know, when you're 100 people and you recruit one person, so that becomes your 100th person, that's 1/100th of your culture. So if that
yeah,
person is a bad egg, they will have a little bit of effect. And if you leave them too long unchallenged, they can eventually, have a detriment. But when you have 10 people and, that 10th person comes in, that's 1/10 of your culture. So if that person hasn't got the right personality, if that person hasn't got the right values and the right mindset around them, regardless of the skill set and the competence, that can have such a bigger impact, both positively and negatively, on the business. And I think, like you said, it's a trial and error. Obviously you're now at a good stage with kind of hiring and making sure people have similar mindset and philosophy to yourself. But it's so important, and I really chime with what you said about being a values based business. I think I would even argue all of us should see ourselves as value based businesses as an individual. Like, what
yeah,
are your core values that you use as your filter and your funnel for all decisions in life? Like you said, this is how you do it in a business context for working with people. But equally, how do I set my values in terms of integrity, fulfillment, freedom, and lifelong learning? Everything I do, how does it fit into that nice funnel? If it's not chiming with integrity, if I'm shafting people, it's off the list. If it's taken away from my freedom, both physically and financially, and it's constraining me, off the list. If it's not fulfilling, if I'm not ultimately helping leave a legacy and help support people, off the list. And if it's not learning, if I'm not growing and I'm fixed, it's off the list. And I do that with everything, whether it's sport in golf, like you can never be perfect at golf, you can always improve, you can always learn, or whether it's the work I do in terms of coaching. So I think that's really, really powerful in terms of what you shared there. Um,
I think it's that, yeah, I mean, if at your age, I wish I could have vocalized it like that. I just, had no idea. And I think it's that thinking that it's going to change the world we live in, because I think there's still a lot of people in the kind of 90s mindset where it was like, tread on your granny, make as much money as you can. And the world is changing, and I think you probably don't see it in a lot of boards and directors who are my age. You do see it because we work with great people, but it's a formula that just doesn't go wrong.
mm,
I think it just, whether you're somewhere for part of your life or all of your life, and I don't think people necessarily stay in one place. It's it is the future of how businesses are going to be, and I am really pleased that I was able to stick with that. And I will say, we don't advertise as a business. 95% of our work comes through recommendation. We keep our contracts for years, which is really, really unusual in marketing. Normally, there's a 6-month burn for a lot of people. So that culture has actually been my marketing. It's
Mm.
because I don't need to spend any money on advertising, because we've built a reputation that's so good that it does it for you. And I
Yeah,
think that's the same with a career. Work hard, be your true self, and make a difference to others, and it should all fall into place. Not always, because you'll meet people along the way but that's just life.
yeah, yeah. No, you're bang on, and I think it can be understated. We can obviously these are the key strategies, these are the key tips to do this and that. But if at the end of the day you treat people how you would like to be treated, you're hardworking, and you try and operate in that zone of genius at all times. So you always try and find the thing you enjoy. What's the thing that you would do regardless of being paid? If you try your hardest to constantly go to that area, it's gonna give you fuel, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose kind of close or pull our session to a close really in terms of the podcast today. You've had a clearly such a wealth of knowledge and experience, and you're kind of going from strength to strength where you are now, which is a joy to see. Now, I'm interested if that young Kate, when she got told to be a hairdresser, um, I can't believe that, by the way. I'm sure people were as shocked as me when I heard that. But if you had your time again, and you can speak to that young Kate when they're kind of fresh faced and naive and about to enter the kind of the big wide world. What piece of advice would you perhaps have given her, knowing what you know now, I suppose?
I think for me personally, the answer, I suppose, would be, believe more in yourself. Don't be afraid to push yourself forward. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want, which is something that took me a long, long time, because I think, if really honestly, part of my my values set, my personal culture when I was younger, was kind of making everybody else happy, which is not the same thing as having a plan for that. It was just, I'm going to be, I was always the one that, I wanted to make people laugh, and um, really get my, I think I wanted to be seen and be more visible, but I don't know if you always do. So I think my advice to anybody would be, get coaching, go to coaching. Um, whether you do that as a group or whether you work with somebody, it just is so powerful, and it can change the direction of your life really easily. You do a few small things differently and think slightly differently, and suddenly everything is massively different. And I think that that coaching element would have been, I didn't even know what to me a coach was something I got to Brighton occasionally to see my granddad. but but that would be it. Access, so listen to podcasts, watch those TEDx talks, get into a group coaching program, be around people who can make you better than you believe you can be.
I love that. I absolutely love that, and I think I can definitely, I can definitely kind of chime in with that. I suppose in terms of, I had my own direction, my own path. There's a commonly a thing called the quarter life crisis, where people go to university, they do what they're told to do, they get a couple of jobs, and when they hit that 25 age mark, they start looking around and thinking, "Crikey, is this really what I want to do?" And that's when I luckily went into, like you said, podcasts, read books, research, started to think what I like, and fell into the world of coaching. And the more I knew about myself, the more it then guided my own journey in my own direction. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would say comes out of coaching. It kind of challenges your perceptions and gains more self awareness on who you are and how you are operating as your authentic self. And once you have that knowledge, obviously the second most important thing is to then take action on it and actually say, right, now I know this, I know what I like, I know my interests, I know some of my strengths already. How can I lean into this? How can I lean into that on a more regular basis? So, yeah,
Yeah.
it is really powerful.
Yeah, have a roadmap for where you want to get to. Don't always think about the big things that we have to go through sometimes many years to make things happen, but take a step forward, do something every month that is going to get you close to where you want to be. Don't wait for it to happen to you, because my life's sped by pretty quickly. I'm not quite on my way out yet, but
No, you're not.
I'm
Yeah,
lucky.
you're
I'm
all good.
surrounded by a few people that are younger than me, but I think you have a long life ahead of you. It doesn't all have to happen today, but if you're with the right people, it's going to make it a lot quicker.
Definitely, definitely. And if people want to connect with you, kind of Kate, and continue this conversation, where's the best place for them to find you and connect?
So best place to find me is on LinkedIn. So just look for Kate Everett, and the company is TWI, and I'm usually on there spouting off about something. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, and I'm actually planning to. My team have asked if we can do um, a little bit more insight into what we do. If you look at my LinkedIn, it looks like we don't do any work. It's just usually uh, full of other stuff. But uh, again, that's the authentic part. I think I would like to think that you could ask any of our clients or anybody I know, and they would tell you the same thing, that it's it's a kind of true representation of who we are as a business.
Definitely, definitely. And I'll be sure to include kind of links in the show notes to your LinkedIn and the right
Oh,
impressions
thank
if
you.
people want to connect. So thanks again for your time, Kate. It's been an
Has
absolute
that been
pleasure.
an hour already? It's been so. That
I
has
know
been.
there's the time scene. What's it? Time flies when you're having fun. So,
We always like, yeah. When I like talking to you, it's always good.
no, thank you, Kate, and again, hopefully for our listeners, that's kind of given a good bit of insight into entering the world of marketing, and hopefully that will, if you want to continue that conversation, feel free to reach out to myself and Kate, and hopefully that will continue your journey in the right direction. So, thanks again, and thanks for your time, Kate.
Thank you.
Cheers, Kate.